Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the WTF1 podcast. Today, I love in the little nodding, Katie, as well. Love that. Today, we're talking about the Turkish Grand Prix. And, a wet, not as slippery Grand Prix as we predicted in our pre-Turkey podcast. But, I was about to be like hyping. Like, oh, wow, wasn't it a great race? Probably one of the worst wet races we've seen in quite a while. Would you agree?
It would have been. I think we've been spoiled this year is the problem. I think the hype killed it because I don't think I've ever been so excited and nervous for a Grand Prix in quite a long while. It felt like it had every ingredient. You know, the championship's on the line, wet race, Hamilton's at the back. But unfortunately, well, we'll go into it. But yeah, it's not. A fair bit happened, but it just wasn't that great for a wet race, unfortunately.
Yeah, there are plenty of like storylines up and down the grid that were exciting in their own ways, but generally as a spectacle, there were lots of drivers that I feel I just completely forgot almost that they were in the race, like the McLarens and stuff. Lots of people that are normally up at the front making the headlines sort of just blended into the background a bit. But I don't think it was the worst race of the year. I think Portimao was maybe slightly more dull, but yeah, I think Tommy's right in saying that there was a lot of hype going into this race. And unfortunately, we hyped out too much that it kind of just killed the vibe.
I don't think we were particularly to blame. I don't feel like we were on the absolute hype train. I felt like, we were reasonably excited. We're expecting 2021 to just deliver again, and they gave us the conditions, but apparently we were just having a little break. So anyway, we'll dive into, whether we think it was the worst race of the season. I think with all conditions taken into account, maybe you could say, with the fact that our expectations were plummeting. Anyway, I think there was also some interesting strategy at the same time. So it wasn't the worst race by any means. Right, let's move on to some 3-word race reviews. Carl Walsh says, "Stay awake, Max." DHL F1 guy 44. He's been watching our DHL sponsored video from the other week. Dry never came. And Griffin. Oh, come on. You're putting that name in there, Tommy. Are you trying to?
It's a Dyke.
No,
Griffin Dyke. .2.
Okay. All right. We'll call it that. National Porridge Day.
I didn't even look at the name, genuinely.
I know you.
I should probably look at the names in case we get cancelled for.
You literally
really
give me the worst names, and you say that you don't look at the names, and I completely agree with you. So yeah, stay awake, Max. He said afterwards he was always trying to stay awake, wasn't he? I think that literally was his words.
Probably the most boring race ever.
Yeah, he was just chilling in P2, couldn't catch Bottas, and away he goes. Dry never came, which for us F1 fans is a very weird thing to be wishing for these days, but we wanted it to dry out, so we had some element of strategy, and Esteban Ocon may have made one pit stop. And National Porridge Day, which is the craziest linking of two worlds I've ever seen. Tommy, 3-word race review, please.
Mine is second drivers deliver. And it is, of course, about Bottas and Perez, who have been scrutinized quite a lot this year. And I think it's fair to, because they've had some pretty poor races this year. But both of them were, brilliant yesterday, really. Bottas obviously led from pole. I think I wouldn't be alone in thinking that as soon as it was raining, this has got Bottas going off at turn 1 written all over it. Doesn't like the wet conditions. We've spoken about how every single damp race recently, he's really, really struggled, but he was absolutely faultless. So fair play to him. And then Perez as well wasn't, he had a poor qualifying, admittedly, but his race was really, really good. We saw exactly why Red Bull hired him, with his brilliant defending with Hamilton, getting back on the podium, which it feels like forever since he's been on the podium. And one of the points I wanted to make was that because Max and Lewis are so close in this championship, it genuinely could be what Bottas and Perez do on the track that decides this world title. If they're in the fight, like Bottas took points from Max there by winning the race. Perez equally took points from Lewis by defending for everything he could to defend that place. And because there seems nothing to separate Max and Lewis, these are the two drivers that could really affect this title, which is quite crazy to think.
And they've not really affected the title too much so far, have they? Both of them have had quite mediocre seasons. They've had glimmers of hope, but generally speaking...
I guess Bottas affected it quite a bit in Hungary, but that's a different story.
Yeah. Yeah. But I agree, yeah, second drivers did deliver. I think Valtteri's performance was crucial and perhaps slightly better. Obviously, he won the race and was, not even close to being caught really by Max or anyone from behind. He did exactly what he needed to do, which he hasn't done, for the majority of this season. Just stick it right next to Lewis and be really solid in the race. And I tweeted, I think, after the race that the biggest thing for me was that he came back from not even a year ago. We were at Turkey. Was it November
last year? Yeah.
To come back to Turkey after having his worst Formula One race in his career by a country mile, to then come to Turkey this year and it be damp conditions, slightly unpredictable, and to be, as you said, Tommy, faultless, shows a huge amount of mental strength, in my opinion. And the fact that he was able to do that, maybe there's a sense of relief as well, of, knowing where he's going next year, knowing that Mercedes won't be, on his back come next year. So perhaps there is that element of, relaxing and just taking it as it comes. And I feel like that really did show yesterday for the race. So yeah, for Valtteri, solid performance. As for Sergio, yeah, I was incredibly impressed that he managed to keep Lewis behind. I don't think his pace was anything to, celebrate, because I feel like he was quite far behind on Max in terms of pace. But at the same time, he finished P3, took points away from Lewis, and Red Bull aren't expecting him to be, a match for Max. So he did everything he needed to do, P3. And it was a solid day for the second drivers.
It was, like you say, Bottas inherited pole from Lewis on the Saturday. So, could argue that he didn't get that off his own merit, but still pretty much faultless drive. He had a tiny little blip at turn 1 at one point in the race. But like you say, last year finished P14, I think it was. He managed to spin 6 times in the race and it was just an absolute nightmare for him. So like you say, when we tuned in on Sunday and I saw that it was raining and that we were probably going to have the inters, I was thinking, oh my goodness, Bottas is going to do something at turn 1 here. Because I remember before Hungary, I messaged Tommy and said, like, this has got all the signs of Bottas making a big mistake here, to which he did. And I thought, I really hope that we don't get a deja vu of that. And I mean, we now know that Valtteri is going to be leaving Mercedes at the end of the season. He's going on to Alfa Romeo. And I'm sure that in his mind, he probably knew this is going to be one of my last chances, if not my last chance to take a victory for Mercedes, or even like his last victory in Formula One. I mean, obviously with the technical regulations, we don't have much of a clue of like who's going to be top next year, but it seems quite a slim chance that that's going to be Alfa Romeo, unless, a miracle happens, but you never know. Stranger things have happened this season in Formula One. But yeah, I'm really pleased to see him take that victory. I'm quite glad we didn't get, I was thinking after the race, his typical, to every, or who it may concern, F you, and all this kind of stuff that he normally does on the radio after winning a race. We didn't hear much of that.
That's unfair to say he does it every single time he wins. I mean, it was
he's done it like 2-3 times.
His last win
twice.
The most embarrassing one.
It was inappropriate when he did it in Russia.
You could argue that was a more fitting. I know, I guess Lewis had the penalty, but that it was one of those races where essentially he did prove the doubters wrong, because I think
undoubtedly,
when it was raining, yes, Lewis was out the question because of the penalty, and you've got to think Lewis could probably would have won the race if he had been starting from pole, very, very likely. I think a lot of people would have written Bottas off as soon as you saw the conditions, me included. But
I didn't.
Fair play. He did.
I didn't write him off. I predicted him to win. Did I not? So let's talk about my predictions very quickly.
No.
Qualifying. Got the top 5 right, didn't I? Yeah. Cheers. Thanks for coming. And to be fair, at one point, if Perez had binned it, I was going to get the... actually, no, to be fair, Gasly and Leclerc were the wrong way around. Anyway, I got the top 3 right again. So,
I was very nervous at one point that you were going to get the race in the exact order as well. And I was like, oh, God, please.
Yeah, until Hamilton.
I would just be like, I can't make a podcast today, guys. Sorry.
At this point, I was going to stop doing predictions and start betting, but there you go. So let's ask some questions. Actually, first, let's say hello to our Team WTF1 members who are watching live. They got an exclusive 15 minutes of us trying to set up a podcast, even though you'd think that we would know by now. But with this new headset and stuff like that, it all went wrong. So thank you and sorry to the Team WTF1 members, but it seemed like they enjoyed just seeing the behind the scenes of us being useless. At JazzWanth_IRL, do you think Valtteri is performing better since he has no team orders or pressure? I would argue he does have team orders, and he will have many team orders to come in the future. But kind of alluding back to what I was saying, I think that with the pressure lifting off his shoulders, he's able to just let it go, Frozen style. And it's nice to see. And it may well be his last victory, as you say, Katie, from Turkey, because unless Lewis has another penalty, is he going to really have an opportunity? Unless he outperforms Lewis in a race, Max is second and Lewis is third, which doesn't tend to very much happen, it's going to be, game over for him in terms of any other opportunities, unless things obviously go crazy, which we've seen a lot of this year in the Formula One calendar. But he certainly has been performing better.
He has. I think, like you say, team orders isn't something that they'll inevitably come up later down the line. But maybe Bottas had some peace of mind knowing that Hamilton was starting 11th and he wouldn't have the Hamilton threat for a while. But yeah, I wouldn't say that he's performing better since he has no team orders. Maybe he's performing better because he now has a solid future. He knows he's going to be in Formula One next year. Might not be with the same team, but a seat is a seat for these drivers. So yeah, I imagine there's probably lots of things that are slowly falling into place that's maybe making him perform a little bit better. And of course, before his seat at Alpha got confirmed, he was rocking up to a race weekend, and every given opportunity, whether it was written media, whether it was people doing, like Sky Sports or Channel 4 or whatever, everyone was asking him, do you know what your plans are for next year? Are you going to get that Mercedes seat? And maybe in the back of his mind, Bottas knew that it was probably quite unlikely that he was going to get that seat. And that must just get exhausting after a while, just having people ask you the same question again and again and again, essentially saying you're not really performing well enough to keep this top seat. And to have that play on your mind the whole time, I'm sure will inevitably affect your results on the track as well. So he's probably just quite happy to have things sorted and knows that he doesn't have to keep answering these same questions again.
Yeah, I don't think it's been a coincidence that as soon as he had his, like you say, his contract sorted with Alpha, it's all out in the open. People can stop asking him the same questions about, are you going to stay at Mercedes? Is it going to be Russell? That he's picked up the pace. And Monza felt like a bit of a turning point where, he really delivered that weekend and should have won. So I guess, you could argue that Russia was almost like a bit of a redemption for that Monza race that he arguably would have won if he was allowed to start on pole, which he deserved to be. It was obviously had his engine penalty there. So, yeah, it's clear that some drivers handle pressure better than others and things said in the media. And I think it's pretty clear that Bottas, the season slump, once he got into it, he struggled to get out of it. But, well, it's ending up at a good time for him to be back on it for Mercedes, because like I alluded to earlier, this is what Mercedes need in not just the constructors, but the drivers as well.
Indeed. Lovely point, Tommy. Thank you. Team WTF1 member Rdone0 says, after the amazing drive and holding up Lewis, do you think Perez will have more confidence in the second Red Bull? No. I think that it's similar to Daniel Ricciardo winning at Monza and then being knocked out of Q1 in qualifying. Formula One to an extent is a confidence sport, but when you fundamentally can't get on with something in the car, albeit, okay, Danny Rick had a really amazing weekend at the Italian Grand Prix and it all kind of clicked together and he was on the pace with Norris. It doesn't mean, winning a race means you go to another track and completely different characteristics. You have to still drive the same car that's been giving you problems all year. It's the same for Sergio. I don't expect this to now be a miracle performance where next race, US Grand Prix, he is going to be on the pace with Max. The turning point for me is going to be when the new regs kick in. And, Perez will have a chance to maybe give some feedback and some, of his own ideas of how the car how he'd like the car to handle. But until then,
which they're definitely not going to.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
It'll be
Shut
one
up,
of those.
Sergio.
Cool. Yeah, straight in the bin sort of thing.
Yeah.
But at least he'll have a chance, and also he'll have more of a chance to learn what the car will be like next year, and he has more time to work with the engineers, get his head around maybe what he needs to change with his driving style. But we've seen it consistently with Gasly, Albon, now Perez, that is a maxed car, and next year will be a good opportunity with a clean slate to get his head around it, because there's only so far the excuse goes, especially when the car is it's a complete overhaul next year. It is a clean slate in a lot of ways. So until then, I don't see it changing for Perez, Ricciardo, whoever.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. I think, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like we probably would have got this exact same question after Baku when Perez won the race. And it's like, is this the turning point for Perez? Look, the second seat isn't cursed. He's fine. He can drive the car. This is the justified decision. And then look at his performances since that race. Yeah, he had a good race at Paul Ricard example, but spun off at Silverstone and had a bit of bad luck in Hungary, but then has been a bit poor. So yeah, I don't think it's just because he's got a podium it's suddenly going to be absolutely amazing. I think the key for Sergio is for him to sort his qualifying out, because he was very good this weekend in the race, but again, his qualifying let him down. Luckily he made a really good start and could get past those guys to get where he needed to be. But he doesn't want to be he shouldn't be starting 7th when Max is second or third. So that's the big one. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure he'll take a little bit of confidence, because his battle with Hamilton was amazing and can't hurt his confidence. But yeah, it's too difficult to say that one race is going to completely change everything, because it's clearly more than just a confidence issue in that second Red Bull seat, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. I think naturally having a good weekend, you're going to take some positives and some confidence with you into the next race. The next one is in the USA at the end of October, or 22nd, I think the race is, so towards the end of October. But like you say, I don't think it's going to be a miraculous like Perez on the podium every single race from here on out, because of he's got one podium here. I think Russia could have gone his way had the conditions not changed. He was looking quite promising there. But like you say, other than that, if you had to pinpoint other races where he really was delivering in that Red Bull second seat as he should be, there was Baku, there was Paul Ricard, and that's kind of like the only standout races I can think of where he was really like delivering more than what Gasly or an Albon or someone like that had done. Like you say, qualifying is definitely his weakness, and he needs to get that sorted ASAP, because it's affecting the race. And with such a competitive midfield as well, like you say, if he starts down in 7th, like he did, or qualified in 7th for the race this weekend, it's not just as easy as, I can quickly take that McLaren and do this and do that, because the McLarens and Ferraris are being so competitive now that you need to be starting ahead of them and keeping them back rather than trying to wiggle your way through them. So hopefully good things are on the way for Sergio. But I don't think it's going to be a case of like just a magic wand has now been waved and he's going to be on it every single race weekend from now until Abu Dhabi.
Indeed. Yeah, it's going to be a tough slog. But we'll see. We'll see how it all unfolds. Team WTF1 member Connor asks, with Red Bull once again looking slower than Mercedes over the course of the weekend, is this Red Bull genuinely losing pace, or have we just been to a few typical Mercedes tracks in a row? I mean, we went to Russia where they've never lost. So, I mean, that in itself should be a stat that maybe supports that statement. I mean, when you look back over the years, Red Bull have tended to be quite strong towards the end of the year, whether that's because Mercedes have just chilled out with development for that year or Red Bull just come strong. When we get to the Abu Dhabis of this world, Red Bull have been very good round there. So obviously we've got a few different tracks at the end of the year.
Mexico coming up, that's normally a pretty good Red Bull track.
Very true, very true. So yeah, I think it's just twos and fros. We go to the US Grand Prix where I don't know, it's going to be difficult to tell. I think maybe Mercedes will be quicker there as well, but we don't know. That's the beauty of this season. But as you say, Mexico coming up, Abu Dhabi as well. I really hope it's going to go down to the wire. Everybody calm down with your panic buttons, because we've had this about 100 times this season where, Mercedes have a poor race or a poor two race and they've gone, wow, they've given up. That's it. Red Bull, they've won the title.
It was over, wasn't it, after double Austria, apparently?
Exactly. It was over. Mercedes have put every single egg out of the 2021 basket and put it into 2022. And then Lewis Hamilton all of a sudden was winning the championship at one point, and now it's back to Max. This is beautiful. This whole season is wonderful. We need to appreciate it. It's not over. There's going to be more toing and froing, and it has to go down to the last race of the year, surely. And now it's not. Well done, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. We have got two races, of course, that we don't actually know how the cars are going to do. We haven't raced in Saudi. We haven't raced at Qatar. So that's a part of the calendar that I'm excited to go to in terms of the unknown. But yeah, I think it has just been a case of that we've been at some tracks that have suited Mercedes. Like look at Turkey last year, for example. Lance Stroll managed to get pole in a Mercedes-powered Force India or Racing Point, sorry. Hamilton won that. Mercedes were generally quite strong last year, with the exception of Valtteri Bottas, but we'll just skim over that. And I mean, last year in Turkey, we had no Red Bulls on the podium, for example, and they looked to struggle at some points, like in practice and stuff like that, and throughout the race, she says, and then they get a double podium. But generally, they'd not, wiped everyone away competition wise this weekend. But I think I really, really hope that it goes down to the wire in Abu Dhabi. We deserve this as F1 fans. It would just be so wrong in the way that the season is going at the moment if it got decided a few races prior. But I mean, there's 6 races to go now. It's not many.
Yeah. 8 points. I think Red Bull will definitely be, it's not really their fault, because you look back at races like Baku when they had the puncture.
Did you say 8 points, Tommy? There's 6.
Is it 6?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 6.
God,
6 with. Sorry, yeah, sorry. No, I know why I said 8.
I know exactly which stat you're about to drop. That's fine.
Yeah. The fact that it's not been any more than 8 since Silverstone, which is absolutely insane. I can't remember a season that's been this close for that long. I think Red Bull are going to look back and think, it's clearly not their fault. Although Silverstone, I guess you can argue either way, but things like Baku, Silverstone, Hungary, that's where Red Bull really lost the big points. And now it seems that Mercedes are definitely level with Red Bull. I find it quite difficult now to categorically say which car is faster. At the start of the season, you said, well, this looks like Red Bull do actually genuinely have the quickest car. And then you'd go to some races and Mercedes would be a bit quicker. But then I think now it is genuinely just they're really, really close. And whoever nails the weekend with setup and everything else is the car that gets ahead. So if that carries on, I mean, if it carries on the way it is, it's literally going to be a case of a straight fight between Hamilton and Verstappen, Abu Dhabi. Whoever wins the championship, which I think would be the perfect end, really. No, like them going in completely even. It's a case of whoever wins the race wins a title, rather than blah 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 has to finish 5th, blah 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 has to finish 7th, whatever. That's the perfect scenario for me. And the way it's going, it could quite easily happen, which is incredibly exciting and incredibly nerve-wracking.
I was going to say, I feel like my palms are already sweating at the thought of that.
It's just felt so long since we've had this, and it's so tense, and it makes every single race weekend have that, because I've just, the last couple of years you've just gone, well, Hamilton's won the title, just enjoy the races for what they are, but you can enjoy the races for what they are, and you got this incredible title fight as well. It's so good.
Can we just the great comment, great point, Tommy. Can we just kind of add in that you're not jinxing, and we need to talk about the jinx that doesn't happen, because I feel like this clipping of like myself and you saying, great title fight, Abu Dhabi, blah, blah, blah. And I can see it that Hamilton wins by 50 points or something.
Yeah, probably.
So can we just, can we cancel I don't know how you cancel jinxes, but can you just...
Hamilton will win the title in Mexico. There you go.
Or just we don't get a title finale. There we go. Yeah. Perfect. I just wanted you've got a lot of power recently. I don't want to be messing with that.
I'm a bit scared of that.
We interrupt this WTF1 podcast. So very quick chat about our sponsor for this episode, Manscaped. Attention listeners across the galaxy, all the way from Australia to Houston. Do we have a pube problem? If so, our friends at Manscaped have cleared you for takeoff with their 4th generation and brand new Lawnmower 4.0. If you're ready for an out-of-world experience, look no further than the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped that has just taken off in not only the USA, but Canada, the UK, across Europe, Australia, South Africa, and Singapore. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance Boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your whole solar system. So what are you waiting for? You can get 20% off plus free shipping with the code WTF1 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code WTF1 at manscaped.com. Trust me, your body will thank you. Right, let's get back to the podcast.
Katie, your 3-word recipe, please.
Mine is big tyre gamble, and that is to do with the fact that with everybody starting on Inters, we knew that it would become quite the strategy race, but because of the bizarre conditions that we had in Turkey, where it was kind of murky, drizzly, it never really dried up the track. It meant that tyres, like if you were to pit for new intermediates, for example, Daniel Ricciardo, first guy to pit, the tyres didn't give you the immediate performance advantage or just general performance advantage that everybody was thinking, which led to some really interesting strategy decisions. Of course, we briefly mentioned Esteban Ocon lasting the entire race on the same set of intermediates, which what a thing to do, like amazing. We then saw Vettel pit for slicks, which was like, I mean, Tommy tweeted about it and Tommy was like a few seconds ahead of me. And I was like, is this like an old tweet? This can't be right now. Like Vettel's not going to be pitting for slicks, but he did, which was a crazy decision. But the one that everyone is talking about is Lewis Hamilton, because he declined the request from the team to come into the pits. He said, no, these tyres feel fine. But then the decision was made that he should pit, and he pitted later. And then that kind of ruined his race a little bit because he ended up dropping back further than if he had pitted when he was asked to. But I feel like Hamilton's getting a lot of unfair comments. Obviously on the radio, it was broadcast his message between himself and the team in the pit wall. And naturally, if Hamilton feels like he can go for a longer distance on those tyres, then he's going to want to stay out. But then I also appreciate that the team have got more data. And if they think that he's running a real risk of staying out, and they can see data that Hamilton can't behind the wheel of his car, then I see why they want to bring him in. But in the end, it was probably the wrong decision from Hamilton to stay out. But then you just look at Russia, and he said that the team were telling him to pit, and he said no. And in the end, he pitted and listened to the team and won the race. So it's swings and roundabouts. But yeah, lots of tyre talk after Turkey.
Well, there's a lot of tyre talk, and also this is the carbon copy of what happened last year at Turkey. I don't see that many people actually talking about the fact that we were talking about still intermediates or whatever you want to call them from Turkey last year. And I did find it a bit mystifying to see Vettel in particular go on dries when it was quite clearly incredibly humid, as the commentators kept mentioning, and just generally wasn't ready for dries. And we saw this whole as you say, like strange strategy thing, but the teams had done this last year. And for me, with Lewis's strategy in particular, it didn't make sense for the team to go, okay, right, stay out, we'll give ourselves a few more laps to think about it, whatever. Lewis at that point, lap 51 and 58, has kind of like locked himself into that strategy, in my opinion. And I know Ocon's tyres were absolutely shot by the end of it. He even had an O on his front right tyre, which looked like he'd kind of signed it himself. But the thing was, I think Lewis kind of said it in a comment that if Esteban Ocon had done it, I definitely could have done it. Which I don't think he meant to mean it in the sense of
Savage.
he is a terrible driver and I'm not. But Lewis is incredibly good at keeping his tyres in good nick. And I think for a lot of that race, he thought he was going to go the entire race. As much as he was attacking, I think I saw some pictures of his tyres and they weren't in as bad a condition as Ocon's were. And I know there was talk of Ocon's lost 50 seconds in the last 14 laps or whatever.
50 seconds.
But that's Ocon in an Alpine. Lewis in a Mercedes, 7-time champ. He's done this sort of stuff before. I feel like he would have done a much better job. No offense to Esteban, but I feel like he would have done a much better job. And his sort of calls and thoughts of how the tyres are usually right. That's the reason why he is a 7-time world champ. So for me, I know it was damage limitation. They'd rather get 5th than DNF with a tyre blowout. But I never heard that conversation. I may have missed it. But I never heard that conversation of Mercedes going, your tyres are in critical condition. You have to come in or they could blow. So, I don't know. For me, it felt like, yes, a safe decision, but maybe the wrong one.
I personally think it was the right one for the championship. I think if it had been 2020 and Hamilton's, already wrapped up the title, then totally understand. I guess for me, and this will be Mercedes thinking that, yes, I personally believe Hamilton probably could have stayed out and done a lot better on his tyres than Ocon because it's Lewis Hamilton. We saw it, like you say, literally the year before in Turkey, he did that. But for Mercedes, they're the ones essentially, I guess, thinking with their heads, not their heart a bit more. And Hamilton as a racing driver is always going to want to stay out, and it seems completely illogical of him thinking, well, I can stay in third here. It's really hard to overtake. Like you say, he's already gone that far. You almost need to commit, or you should have come in earlier. But I guess what Merck were thinking, like you kind of alluded to, is 15 points. Do you take 10 or risk getting 0? And if he takes 10, the championship is still within 6 points. And at this stage of the season, when there's only 6 races to go, you're in a situation where it's all about staying in the hunt rather than taking that risk. If it's the final race of the season and we're talking like Brazil 2008, then yeah, absolutely, Hamilton's going to be thinking of the points and thinking he needs every single point. Or if it's really close to the end of the season, then that's the kind of bit where you do that. But with 6 races, I think this is just simply Mercedes going, look, Lewis, we've got a very good car here. There's 6 races to go. Just stay with Verstappen as much as you can in this title fight, and we win it in Abu Dhabi and win the race. Kind of that kind of sensible logic from Mercedes. So I totally understand why Mercedes did it. I'm quite surprised actually that Hamilton didn't pit, like Katie said, on, I think it was lap 42. So it was a long time that he actually essentially ignored it, and then it became too late, and it didn't really work out. So I think he would have been better off. It's all hindsight, but better off just listening to his team in the first place, like he did in Russia, which won him the race.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I mean, as well, Ocon, he might not be known as an absolute time master, but in comparison to Lewis's race, for example, I'd imagine Esteban was able to maybe take care of those tyres a little bit more, whereas Lewis is coming from 11th. We saw the battle with Yuki, we saw the battle with Perez. So I'm assuming naturally that would cause some stress to the tyres in those little battles there. So maybe Lewis would have been able to manage the tyres. If he says he could, he probably could have. But this is a team sport. As much as it's a driver in their car on the track, decisions do have to be made behind the scenes sometimes, and respected by the drivers.
That sounded very PR friendly. That wasn't, Katie. I was like, do you work for Mercedes now?
I'm practicing to be Lewis Hamilton's PR.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because you can see it from both sides. You can see it from, okay, it was a safe decision, stay within touching distance of Max, but if he loses the championship by 4 points or something, you look back at these kind of moments and go, oh, was it worth the risk? And, Safe decision. For me, I'm trusting Lewis Hamilton's gut instinct in the car with 7 laps to go, that he's done many overhauls of Mercedes in the past and it's worked. Now, of course, listening to Russia when there was literally a storm coming was a good decision from him. But I feel maybe in these kind of situations, Lewis is maybe in a better position. But hey, I'm sure a lot of people disagree with me and are writing their comments right now. Next question. At Paul_is_supreme. All right, Paul. Do you guys think it's fair for Lewis to be so dismissive towards the team on the radio after the pit stop when on the timing it showed that Charles was losing time to Bottas and it was the team's call that won him the last race when he wanted to stay out in Russia? I think it's 2 very different situations, in my opinion. This was Lewis judging the tyres. The last one was the team saying a storm is coming. I feel like the 2 very different. One's on feel. One is on literal facts of George Russell meme here, of the rain coming. So for me, I think it was very fair for Lewis to be dismissive and also a little bit angry. He's in the heat of the moment. He's come out afterwards and said, which I don't think he even needed to, that he didn't mean to be horrible or whatever to the team. Like, it's just in the moment, you win and you lose together, whatever. That very PR friendly stuff, but. Lewis, so many people, like Kimi literally roasted his team about a drinks bottle when he was in the garage. Well, actually, no, I think he was driving around, but he also roasted them when he was back in the garage. And everyone laughs at that. But Lewis, who was angry about losing a few points, and I think quite rightly being angry at maybe a decision he thought was wrong, and all of a sudden Lewis has to explain that. I don't understand that. It's very double standards, in my opinion, and I think people getting annoyed at him being angry is ridiculous.
I think it's very much double standards. I mean, literally look at Russia. We had Lando Norris telling his engineer to shut up, and everyone was like, oh, he's just under pressure and all this kind of stuff. But if it was Lewis Hamilton doing that, then that naturally draws criticisms. People call him a crybaby. The F1 TV direction know what they're doing when they play these clips of Lewis. Obviously, he's stressed and wants to overrule a decision, but the whole reason we all get into watching live sport and, especially Formula One, is because of the emotion that comes with that. I don't know anybody who will sit and watch a Formula One race, like just on their little sofa going, yes, well done, that was a really good move, or whatever. Everyone's up from their sofas cheering, shouting, getting upset when things maybe for your favorite driver or whatever don't go their way. Like, sport and emotion goes hand in hand. And I think it was Sebastian Vettel that said a few years ago in a press conference, like, imagine if you plugged a radio, like a microphone, to football players or, rugby players or whoever. Like, I watch the tennis sometimes, and people like Andy Murray or Novak Djokovic, they get so angry because they're so passionate about what they're doing.
Oh, Djokovic breaks rackets every match.
Literally every match. So I think it's just part of being a sports person, is that you're so invested in what you're doing, the hours that they've put in to be in that position at that moment in time. Naturally, I think you're going to get a bit pissy if things aren't going your way.
That's the
technical term there.
Yeah, you make a really good point, Katie, about that. And also the fact is, it's the funniest thing is that people will get triggered by what Hamilton is saying on the team radio, show emotion and put it on Twitter. And yet they're having a go at Hamilton for showing emotion about a particular live sporting event where he's in a very tough championship fight. Like, people are getting emotional over his emotion.
They're not driving at 200 miles an hour.
No, exactly.
While
They're
on
sat on
Twitter.
their couch.
They shouldn't be anyway. Yeah, completely agree. Every time someone has a go at someone for a radio outburst, for me, it always, like you said, Katie, it always comes back to that brilliant piece of that brilliant comment from Sebastian Vettel. And there's another bit that he said in that, because I was just listening to it not long before this podcast, and he said to the journalist that asked him the question, because it was when he kind of called Verstappen something for a move while they were racing,
a D-head.
A D-head, yeah. And he said to the journalist, he said, if I punch you in the face right now, you're not going to be like, oh, that wasn't very nice. Can't believe you've done this. It's not going to be, it's not going to be that. So it's adrenaline.
We all have road rage as well, speaking for myself, but when you're driving around in your car,
Yeah, we've all
happens.
played Mario Kart together. We all know.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
God,
true.
yeah.
That's something else entirely.
There you go. Imagine playing Mario Kart, but it being your literal livelihood and everything is on that race, you know, your whole careers and everything like that. Their adrenaline is through the roof. Of course, they're going to be annoyed when they feel like they've lost a couple of places or lost a race.
I think we should do that. Mario Kart, us three.
Kart.
Whoever loses
Team
their job.
radio.
See what happens.
Loses their job.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you want the pure emotions.
But you're really good at Mario Kart. That's not fair. I always come last.
Yeah, I wasn't going to be losing my job in that situation. Anyway, that pretty much, I guess, covers all that. Unless you guys have any other more points, it's okay.
I guess one thing, because I don't think we're going to go into it later, but I did just want to mention that, because we kind of mentioned it a little bit, but Ocon not doing a pit stop for the whole race. I cannot believe it's been 24 years since that's been done.
Is that? Wow.
Yeah. Ocon was 1 year old when it happened.
I guess technically it's not stopping for new tyres, because we've had red flags where people change tyres.
Exactly. And people are like, oh, technically the
People
Belgian Grand Prix was a no stop. But this is the first time ever that it's essentially been a full race distance, because obviously there was a very strange era of Formula One where you weren't allowed to change your tires for a whole race, but they still had refueling. So this is the first time since 1997, which is proper mind blowing. I can't believe it's not been done before.
1.5.
Because back in 97 they had a lot smaller fuel tanks and they weren't made to go the full race. So now they have the fuel tanks that technically could go the full distance. It's almost quite surprising that it's never happened before. But I guess, well, you saw the state of his tires. So that's probably why it's never been done
literally
before.
went, oh, even the tyre was surprised of how much it had worn. My 3-word race review now is dry out, please. Because the track in that state was just rubbish, really, because we needed a change of. We needed it either to rain ridiculously hard so that the drivers actually came in for a pit stop, because those worn intermediates would have acted like dries, and therefore they would have had to pit. It would have caused a bit of chaos, change of strategy, or dry out, and then they would have gone on to mediums. Apparently, if you're Sebastian Vettel, even though that was a strange choice in itself. So then it would have had that element of strategy, but instead it was just another set of inters. And that was it. Just carry on. Oh, graining phase. Oh my God. It was weird to be wishing for it to dry out as a Formula One fan. I think we all expected, especially with Sebastian Vettel, 4-time champ, coming over the team radio and saying, 100%, yeah, it's gonna be, it's gonna be. I think the team asked, is it gonna be dries at any point? He said yes. And like, okay. We've got something coming, maybe in the last 5-10 laps, some gambles. But no, those intermediates became soft, dry tyres, and they were just chilling, which...
I think that is what killed the race. We mentioned about the hype. I think what ruined it was, normally with those races, there was actually quite a bit of action, but you were always just there waiting for that moment where, oh, it's coming. They're going to be on the dry soon. It's going to be super exciting. It's all going to be a gamble of who's going to go on. And actually that never came. So I think that is what made it worse. For wet races, when we want a wet race, the whole point is you actually want it changeable. And this sounds really defeatist, but it was actually the worst possible wet race it could be, because
Spa has entered the chat.
Well, yeah, okay, maybe not the worst race it could be, but for actual drivable conditions, that you didn't get the gamble, and then normally in the wet, like you say, you have that moment where it changes and someone gets to do the tie gamble. But actually what it meant was everyone was just so cautious, because it was all about, literally from the first lap, once everyone got round, it was, okay, I know what happened last year. I've got to save these inters as long as possible. And just, Max Verstappen is a perfect example. Didn't even, Max Verstappen, who, yes, I guess he's in championship mode, but he was just in cruise control the whole race, didn't push, whatever. And then you also had the annoying situation where overtaking actually became more difficult because once there was a dry line, you couldn't go off it. So to dive up the inside and actually make a pass was so difficult because you had that dry line and you're going onto the wet line. So you absolutely need to be sure you're going to make that move stick, because, you know, towards the end, Gasly and Norris were really closing in on Hamilton and looked much faster, but there was just absolutely no way they were ever going to pass because the track conditions were poor. So yeah, it was unfortunate. It was, like you say, apart from Spa, the worst kind of wet race you could have had. You just really needed that dry gamble with maybe 10 laps to go where, you know, say Vettel had gone on to the mediums and then, okay, he's doing the same time. Oh, now it's 5 seconds a lap quicker. Now he's 10 seconds a lap quicker. Then everyone has to come in. That's what you wanted. But unfortunately, it never came. We needed some sun to dry the track out.
We did. It definitely got to a point. Normally when I'm watching a race, I'm either standing up like literally 2 foot in front of the telly, or I'm sat on the edge of the sofa. That if you're watching this,
you're one of those. You actually stand up and watch Formula One.
Like, I can't watch a start from the sofa. I have to stand and be like, oh my God. Yeah, I get really into it, which is why I'm quite glad we don't do watch alongs for the race, because I would just be like bouncing all over the place. But
you're doing the next sprint then, because I want to see that.
Oh
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
How do you watch a Formula One race, Tommy?
I'm right on the edge of my seat at the start, not standing up, but like lean forward. You know, like when you're losing at FIFA.
I was literally about to say that example. That's incredible. Like, right now, then. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I sit forward for the race, and then I'm chill. But you're on the edge of your seat throughout the entire race, Kate.
Pretty much, unless like I have to put my laptop on my lap to type and stuff. But there was a point in the race yesterday where I think it was maybe after Ricciardo had pitted or something, and I actually like lay down on my sofa, and I was like,
you laid down when Ricciardo pitted? I thought that was
no, like after he pitted. Yeah, though, after he pitted, and like there was a few laps of just nothing really happening, and then I think it must have been Perez and Hamilton battling on track, so I was back up again. But yeah, there was a point where I was like lying down. I was like, I haven't done this for a race in absolutely ages. Normally, right on the edge of my seat.
Should have a stepometer for you just during the race, just to see how many paces you do whilst watching.
I'll probably do more in the space of a race than I do all week, to be honest. Just pacing around.
Back to your point anyway. Sorry, Katie.
That's all right. I think my point was just that, it got a little bit... I never like using the words boring or dull, because that's not really true of it. But in comparison to how we've had other races this year, there were moments where it was not quite as eventful as we have seen. And because the Inters just seemed to be the tire of choice because the track was not drying, we didn't really get to see any like crazy strategy changes apart from Vettel's little gamble. And it made me quite like appreciative of the fact that obviously there's a rule that you need to use 2 compounds of tyre in a race. Unless it is wet, then you can run the intermediate the whole time, or the full wet or whatever. But yeah, it made me quite appreciate that rule, that we do have different strategies in a race, and that does make it interesting. I don't know, maybe I'm just...
No, I actually saw some people... I saw some people say the opposite, and I completely disagreed with them and agree with you that some people were like, oh, Ocon being able to do that shows why there shouldn't be that rule, because it would be crazy at the end. And I'm just thinking, no, because everyone will start on hards and finish the race, and it'd be really boring. And you won't even have the enjoyment of a pit stop to change it up.
Yeah, it'll be the tyre conservation Grand Prix, won't it, really?
Exactly. Less fun. Yeah, you want less conservation in Formula One.
Less conservation, more burning through tyres.
Yeah.
God, Tommy. Think of all the Pirelli tyres that you're saying that to. I hope they're not watching. Right, Team WTF1 member Lucy. Was this the most wet race for a while? Obviously excluding Spa, which was not really a race. I think we've kind of covered that. And yes, that is the answer. And we've kind of explained why as well. Mihal Cancel 1111. 1111. Yeah, that was 4. Why did the track not dry up even with no rain? I think we can just say it's humidity.
And it was really cold, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah.
Cold,
no sun,
humid.
really cold. They were all in their
It
coats and
was
stuff. at the
15
start.
degrees, mate. It
Was it?
15. Yeah. So
Oh, was
they
it-
had a
were
whole
they just-
conversation where
They
like,
were all moaning about being cold though.
I think
In the
someone
media
moaned
pen.
about cold, and then Crofty was like, "Oh, what are you talking about, mate? It's 15 degrees. That's a good summer's day for."
In his probably nice warm commentator room.
Although to be fair,
Yeah.
that was one of about 15,000 jokes that Crofty and Button made throughout the broadcast. I think they're both great individually, but together as a team, they were lackluster. They just didn't work, did they? It was very strange. Anyone else gonna?
It just
It's fine. Anyway,
lacked a bit of
if you want me to
chemistry,
come across like the negative person here, you both you start.
Negative
I'm not saying
Nancy.
anything. No, I'm not trying to be negative, but I feel like that combination just didn't work.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I think that's
Fair
fair.
point.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much for your insight. So why did the track not dry up with even though rain? Yeah, cold-ish and rain and humidity. Weather.
Yeah.
Any other weather comments? Or was that pretty much? Yeah, no,
Pretty
good.
much it.
Right, Josepho with a 0. Do you guys agree with Gasly's penalty? Right, a bit more sustenance to this one. We haven't actually spoken about it. So we had Perez on the inside, Gasly in the middle, and Alonso on the outside going into turn 1, lap 1. And do I agree with Gasly's penalty? No. I feel like it was harsh. I feel like the stewards have been lenient with some racing incidents this year. This was probably one where they needed to be lenient because there wasn't really many places for Pierre to go. You kind of got to take into account the track conditions being quite slippery. The start of a race, everyone's on inters, and Perez has just stuck a nose up the inside, which made things a lot more difficult. And Gasly, of course, taking some avoiding action to go a bit wider to give Perez some room. Maybe Gasly could have done a bit more because I think that he gave maybe too much room. He could have squeezed a bit more, perhaps, but it's the start of a race, and he's probably assuming that Perez is going to run a little bit wide on the inside. So, yeah, I felt like it was harsh and not really necessary. There was no intent there. There wasn't any sort of much lack of judgment, in my opinion. So, no, I don't think he deserved the penalty for that.
Well, you'll be surprised to know that I actually don't also agree with the penalty. So
I was going to say, I was ready to
say,
kick off.
yeah.
Hello.
No, I think that was pretty harsh. I know that, the stewards have said that they determined that Gasly was wholly at fault for the collision as he did not leave enough space for Alonso, which I would partly agree with that, looking from the onboards and stuff, that there wasn't much room left for Alonso 3 wide going into that corner. But I am very much of the opinion that, yeah, he was. I know that the stewards said that he wasn't sandwiched, but I think that's probably the best way to describe it. And if he was going to take someone out, it was either going to be Perez or Alonso. Who's better to take out? Probably Alonso because, he had some runoff in turn 1, but also Perez is part of the sister team, and you probably are not going to be in Red Bull's good books if you wipe out Perez in the first corner. So I think the penalty was harsh. I think it was just like a first lap collision. The 5-second penalty and 2 penalty points. Yeah, I don't think is the right decision. But the stewards are now, I think, taking a bit more of a stronger approach on first lap incidents. I think, was it you, Tommy, that you tweeted about a comparison to Hungary, for example, with Bottas and Stroll, which I'll let you mention in a sec. But yeah, I think to give the same kind of penalty for someone like Bottas, who very evidently made a mistake on that first lap of Hungary, compared to Gasly, who was just kind of put in the wrong place at the wrong time, seems a bit unfair. But it's the whole consistency agreement or argument, even with Formula One and
consistency agreement.
There's some proper agreement, but yeah, consistency arguments that's just been bubbling away all year with the FIA and the stewarding. So
yeah,
nothing changes.
I'd go as far as saying I think it's the worst penalty decision we've probably had in about 2 or 3 years. It's I just think it was so obviously not a penalty. Even Alonso himself agreed it was a racing incident after the race. Obviously, we know, shock, driver in the heat of the moment says something incorrect and has a go. You called Gasly stupid, but when things calm down and he can watch it on a screen, he said, it was a racing incident. They're all going into the corner at turn 1, and all 3 drivers had a right to be where they were, but unfortunately And to penalise Gasly of all people in that situation, I guess just because of what happened. And I've seen a few people say this, and I am almost inclined to agree with them now, that I think because Alonso then punted Mick Schumacher and they were being investigated at the same time, I think the FIA was scared not to give Gasly a penalty, even though his wasn't and Alonso's was, because Alonso's was clear that it was, a mistake from Alonso. That if they gave Alonso a penalty and didn't give Gasly one, a certain Fernando Alonso, who's been very vocal about it's one rule for some drivers, one rule for others, would have kind of kicked off about that. But it wasn't a penalty, and Alonso himself said it wasn't a penalty. And I think it's absolute joke that he got a penalty, to be honest. And because he had a 5-second penalty as well, you could even say that he would have been ahead of Hamilton.
Yeah.
And Hamilton got an extra couple of points, and that could decide the World Championship. So if you're really looking really deep into it, yeah. So it's a bit of a yeah, absolute joke. And the fact that he got 2 penalty points, which again, like Katie said, it was Bottas got 2 penalty points for wiping out half the field for a much bigger mistake in Hungary, and they've gone, yeah, you deserve the same penalty points for that. I know the penalty was less severe because it was 5 seconds and not the grid drop, but silly. It actually really winds me up, to be honest. It's very annoying.
I'm loving this. Tommy,
yeah, I know.
Up.
It's now Tommy's leading with these FIA rants. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's such a ridiculous penalty, and I think they did take consequences into account and basically saw what happened with Alonso and Schumacher and said, oh, we've got to give the same penalty because otherwise it's inconsistent. But actually that made it not consistent because one was a lot harsher than the other. Anyway,
you go off on one. I love it. I absolutely do. You love a headline as well. Like when Tommy gets angry about something, it's like, Williams have made the worst livery ever made in
the
Formula
world.
This is the worst penalty decision in 3 years. It's brilliant.
Got to do the
keep
thumbnail,
it
right?
Yeah, I do love it. But yeah, it's ridiculous, and it's kind of a concerning time if that genuinely is true about the stewards feeling scared that Alonso will say something again if they don't penalise Gasly. I don't personally believe that, but if that is the case, then we have some terrible stewarding going on at the moment. Finally, before we dive into ABCDEF1, Carlos Sainz, driver of the day. Decent drive. I mean, we'll dive into, I guess, his drive a bit more when we rate him, but he was given driver of the day. He was shown on the television feeds, which is a miracle in itself. I think that his team radio, not team radio, but when he was speaking to Rosanna Tennant, the driver of the day radio thing, the fact that he was so surprised to win driver of the day, and I think he thinks it's the first time he's ever won driver of the day. I guess it was maybe because he was surprised he was shown on television. So yeah, it was a decent drive from Carlos, and he deserved DOTD.
He did. He was really good. Like I said, we'll go into it in ABCDF1, but he actually had a slow pit stop as well, which cost him massively because he ended up behind Ocon and he had much more pace than Ocon. But as we kind of mentioned earlier, it's so hard to overtake at the end of the race because of the dry line and going onto the wet line. And if he hadn't have had that penalty, he genuinely could have been on the back of the Norris Gasly train, which to think him, if he'd been on the back of, he's getting driver of the day for me anyway, and a really good grade. Spoilers, but if he'd been on the back of Hamilton at the end of the race, like he deserved to be, without that dodgy pit stop, that's incredible for him. For Hamilton starting 11th and Carlos Sainz starting dead last. You saw Ricciardo not coming through the field really at all, and how Sainz managed to just get through the field. Awesome drive. And he did sound very surprised. He was like, oh, people have actually noticed me now. Cool.
It's great. I'm really pleased to see Carlos sort of, I don't know what the right word is, because he's always been a driver that I've had a lot of time and respect for in Formula One. However, this year he seems to have taken that step up, a bit like Lando's done this year. He's kind of done the same thing, but at a different team. And of course, now he is ahead of Charles Leclerc in the driver standings. Guaranteed, it is by half a point. So it's not exactly a massive margin. But I still think that that's something that is extremely impressive. And
especially
like he wasn't before going into Turkey. He
was he not? Oh, maybe I thought that he.
Leclerc finished fourth.
Leclerc finished fourth, so it closed up a little bit.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's true.
I was like,
but
we'll just count this bit out.
How many points do you get for driver of the day these days?
yeah,
25.
they. I think it's incredible that Sainz has actually, Ferrari have had, both drivers had a bit of bad luck here and there, but for Sainz to be level or just ahead of Leclerc, I think is incredibly impressive, especially because the talk going into the season was obviously, where Ferrari is it the curse of the second Ferrari alongside Leclerc? Was Vettel being sabotaged? We'll know if Carlos is absolutely terrible. And because people thought, we could have the Red Bull situation. And, if Sainz gets into that car and is finishing every race 14th or 15th, you go, okay, yes, Leclerc's the golden boy and there's something going on here like Red Bull. But that's not happened. So fair play, Sainz. I think he's been one of the drivers of the season so far.
There we go. Another headline. Lovely. Okay, let's dive into ABCDEF1. Play the jingle if you want to.
Now it's time for ABCDEF1.
Lovely. Remember, you can vote too for the ABCDEF1 polls. Visit WTF1.com after the race and you can vote too. Thank you. Right. Let's start with Lewis Hamilton. B,
yeah.
Yeah, I've gone for a B.
Wow, lovely. In unison. And the fans gave him a B as well. Valtteri Bottas, A star.
Easy.
A star, yeah.
Wow, look at us go.
Nice.
A star from the fans as well. Max Verstappen, A. Wow. and an A from the fans as well. Sergio Perez, A. Oh my God,
Wow.
What is going on? And the fans gave him an A as well. Lando Norris, B.
B.
And the fans gave him a B as well.
Happening?
Wow, 5 in a row. Here we go. Daniel Ricciardo. Okay, this is where we might get into a D.
D? Sorry, I didn't mean to yell that.
That's fine. My ears just exploded. And sorry to everybody as well. But the fans gave him a D as well. Oh my God.
What is going on?
Charles Leclerc, A.
A.
And the fans gave him an A as well. Oh my God. Can we get a whole
someone
grid?
in the
Guys.
Someone in the chat, Formula Wonderland. This is going faster than Race Rundown.
This is insane. Yeah, I've got Race Rundown, 20 out of 20. Can we get ABCDEF1 20 out of 20? This would be insane. Carlos Sainz, A star.
A star.
I thought I was going to be controversial and say A star. Wow. We're agreeing again.
Wow. Oh my God. And an A star from the fans as well. Jeez. Sebastian Vettel, D.
Fudge. I went
for a
E.
C. Oh, E.
Yeah.
It was a pretty poor.
He didn't
Did he
make
cost
it
them
through.
points? Oh, he didn't actually.
I don't think he was running
No,
in the
he
points.
wasn't in the points.
But yeah, he finished 18th. Sorry, by the way, for ruining the vibe we had going
Can
on
we
there.
just go back and pretend you said D?
Yeah, Dean. But yeah, making the call, wrong call to make, and end up 18th and didn't make it through to Q3. So overall, a bit of a rubbish weekend.
I think that's a very savage E, personally. I'm going to stick with D.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's harsh, but
Change your
I've-
grade, Katie. Come on, make it.
Mm,
Come on.
no.
Give him the D.
You
sticking
knew
with
what
D,
you were
Tommy?
saying as you said that out loud.
Yeah. Are you sticking with D, Tommy?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, fair. All right, cool. Well done, Katie. And the fans gave him a D as well. So Katie's the only one going against the trend.
Why do you
Like-
hate Sebastian Vettel?
No,
How dare you? He's such a
no.
lovely person, Katie. How could you?
Disgusting.
How could you? Anyway.
Lance Stroll, I'm going to go with B.
I've gone for B as well.
Gone for a B as well.
And the fans gave him a C.
Oh,
He got 2 points.
haters.
Yeah, Lance Stroll haters.
Hate.
Yeah, Gasly. I'm going to go with an A.
Hey.
What in the smirk is that, Tommy?
Yeah, I think it's
You're
an
not giving him
A.
an A. He was absolutely stunning, and then got a savage penalty.
Yeah, I mean,
What were you going to give him? A B?
I think
P6?
After a penalty that he shouldn't have got.
Yeah, A.
Okay, thank you. Jeez, I know you need a little bit of pushing there. And the fans gave Gasly an A as well. Yuki Tsunoda.
It looked to be going so
He had
well
a
when he was
spin.
holding Hamilton up that long.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a C. It was a bit more potential from Yuki than others.
Yeah, I've gone for. I think
He
he
finished
scrapes
14th
a
in the
C, and I think he loses a grade because he spun. But I think the reason he's getting a C is because he definitely is going to be in Helmut Marko's good books for holding Hamilton up that long.
And to be fair, if he hadn't have spun, he probably would have scored a point. I think.
Yeah, it's a shame. He looked.
that was a shame.
But he had a better quality stuff. He definitely could have done with a dry race and just
Just a
lights to
simple
flag.
race. Yeah,
Difficult to overtake, get some points. Feels like a long time since he got points.
I love how
to
we've
win.
flown through all these grades. And as soon as we speak about Tsunoda, Tommy brings out his Bible. Well, let me tell you about Yuki Tsunoda's
actually.
race. In lap 23, he had a great apex. Katie, what's your grade?
Yeah, I've also gone for a C for Tsunoda. Finishing 14th is not ideal.
Fans gave him a B. Wow, Yuki Tsunoda fan,
Generous.
boys and girls. Shocking. Right, Fernando Alonso. Well, he had a great qualifying, got yeeted, then yeeted Mick Schumacher, ended up finishing P16. That is a
C.
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 Yeah.
I'm
C?
gutted.
But then
I know.
he's absolutely smashed Mick Schumacher. I'm giving him a D. Because I feel like as much as he has, stop laughing, Katie.
I'm sorry. I'm
you're just
Kyle.
bad brain. Yeah, I'm going to go with a D. I think because he took Mick Schumacher out, I feel angry.
I'm still saying
wanna
a
change
C.
to a D?
No,
Anyone want to change to a D?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with a C.
Oh, you're going to change to a D. Finish P16. Smashed Mick Schumacher. Anyone?
no.
No. Okay, fine. The fans gave him a C as well. Esteban Ocon obviously ran the entire race on the intermediates. That O looks like he had a severe lockup at some point. That can't be just natural wear. That was a very odd O. Got 1 point.
Okay.
I mean,
I want to give him an A star for just managing those tyres, but realistically, I think it's more of a B.
Yeah. Is it even a B? Because
I think it's a C.
Ocon
Okay,
would
went
have
the whole
probably, if
race.
Ocon didn't get punted at the start, which I know said it wasn't, he did get punted at the start. Don't think it was his fault. And
Ocon got punted at the start. Please talk me through this incident.
no, sorry, did I say Ocon? I meant I meant
I was gonna say,
Alonso.
what did he get?
Alonso got punted at the start and probably would have finished about 5th or 6th. And then you've got to think that,
It's a C.
yeah, I've got to go C. However much I want to give him an A just because of that record. But
I'm staying with B because I don't think he deserves the same grade as Alonso.
That's why I gave him a D. Anyway, Esteban Ocon gets a C from us and a B from the fans because everyone was very impressed, clearly, by that tyre miracle. And then we've got the 2 Alfa Romeos. Let's just give them a pair of C's. They finished 11th, Antonio Giovinazzi and Kimi Raikkonen 12th. No? Okay, you want to give something better.
Worse.
I
you
want to
thinking?
give, no, I'm not going to use that phrase. Giovinazzi deserves that's even worse. Yeah, a D for Giovinazzi.
Nice, good save.
I know. I've seen that face a lot online, and I noticed a lot of people go, "How?" Because I noticed I saw the race do drive ratings, and everyone was like, "How dare you give Giovinazzi a bad grade?" He ignored team orders twice in the race when Kimi was faster, and it cost them a point. And when you're that far down the grid, and you're looking for a drive next year, and you're ignoring your team twice to not get team points, I think that's appalling.
Let me provide you with some speculative insight. He's clearly not racing for Alfa Romeo next year.
Tell me you haven't got an F1 seat without telling me you haven't got an F1 seat.
Yeah, but in terms of his personal career, like, why would you want to go out
Oh,
sour like
there's
that.
no chance. I'm sorry. There's no chance he's coming back to Formula One.
He said that he hasn't got any plans next year, so he probably thinks, oh,
I
well,
got no plans.
just
No plans, guys.
screw it, you're not coming through.
Just imagine him like
Yeah, that is
playing the
bad,
F1
actually.
game like with a pizza box next to him, like, oh,
We'll get him on the
nothing
podcast.
left.
Like Thor and Endgame, if you've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched Endgame the other day for the third.
I saw from IBR.
You're welcome. I don't know.
I was going to say, like, picture Giovinazzi with his hair long, but it's already even longer, like
even longer.
massive. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
I've
All
gotta
right. With
give him a
that, with
bad
that
grade for
insight, which I
'cause-
didn't know, I'm going to change my grade to a D.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okie dokie. And the fans gave him a C. Kimi Räikkönen, I'm going to give a C.
Yes.
And the fans gave him a C. George Russell. He obviously messed up in qualifying, could have got through to Q3, then had a very rubbish race.
He was
really.
so anonymous all weekend.
Yeah.
So anonymous.
Wow. I say anonymous qualifying. He
Well,
was-
qualifying,
was
he
there,
made a
there,
mistake, so
thereabouts.
we did notice him. Yeah,
He was there.
he was there. He
George Russell
did
popped up on
exist.
screen and-
C, very average from
Yeah, C.
George.
Yeah.
In a
see.
race where you thought, as soon as you saw it raining, you're like, hello, George
Mhm.
Russell, top 5.
Katie, you've not filled up the last 3 grades for WTF1. I don't know who's got me.
I'll do it now. I think you can guess what Mazepin's will be.
Okay, I can probably fill that one out for me. Okay. Nicholas Latifi, I'm going to go with a C.
D.
No, D, actually. I've just seen where he finished, 17th, behind Fernando Alonso, who got yeeted.
He spun as well.
He did.
On
D
the
for
stop.
Latifi. And Katie, who are you going to go for?
I'm going to give Latifi a D.
And the
I
fans
just thought I'd
gave
do
him
this
a lowercase c, as opposed to all the uppercase C's. I'm joking. I'm kidding. But that was literally a joke, literally only for us, because no one else can see the sheet. Right. So Latifi gets a C from the fans, which is very generous.
Very
Please, from the
generous.
team. Nikita Mazepin.
What
had
good
a-
did he get from
he
the
was just-
fan?
He was just fighting Mick Schumacher the whole race, so I'm going to give him a
And
C.
Lewis Hamilton at one point?
Yeah, actually, no, yeah, that was bad with the blue flag.
Yeah, that was pretty shocking.
Okay,
I'd put an F.
D for that. D
I've
for
got
that.
done D for not noticing the World Championship leader at the time is a bit poor form when you're a backmarker.
Bad, isn't it? Katie, you giving him an F?
I gave him an F because I just thought that he ignored blue flags numerous times, getting into like not a scuffle with Hamilton, but causing unnecessary drama through his
Did he
driving
finish behind
standards.
Mick, actually?
He
did
did.
finish
He
behind
finished
Mick, yeah.
20th,
Oh, actually,
and they got lapped twice, both Hasses. So pretty shoddy from him.
Cool. I had this is a random story that's probably not that interesting, but I'm going to tell it anyway.
Here we go.
I had visions
yourselves in.
when
Visions. Oh, God.
visions. You know, when Bottas lapped Mazepin and
Okay.
Mick Schumacher was right behind him, Mick let Bottas and Max through, and I had visions that Mick was going to think Verstappen, because he was in the white Red Bull, was Mick and race him. Thankfully, he didn't, but then some reason raced Hamilton. So yeah, I could just see that happening, and him like
What, no,
thinking
you can
it's
see Mazepin doing that, you mean?
Mazepin thinking that Verstappen was Mick.
Okay,
'cause
I'm
it's a
pretty
white
sure you
Red
said
Bull.
Mick. Anyway, maybe I'm not listening to you properly, but either way, that's fine. Great story, Tommy. It was confusing, but I know what you mean.
How was that confusing? Okay.
No, I think you said Mick, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
Anyway, yes. Well, I'm glad that he didn't, but then yeah, it's even worse that he fought Hamilton.
Yeah, I'm downgrading him to an E then, because I didn't realize he finished
Okay, so
behind
we
Mick,
D,
even
an
with
E, and an
Mick's spin.
F. A D, and E, and an F, so that makes it an E. And the fans gave him an F, and then lol. Katie put afterwards. And finally, Mick Schumacher, obviously amazing qualifying, got smashed by Alonso. I'm giving him a B.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
what a
think it
shame.
is
What a shame.
fair.
Yeah, it was a shame.
Would have been nice to have seen him
And the fans
get
gave
to do
him,
the race.
Either 19th.
yeah, the fans gave him a B and then a smiley face afterwards. Katie's written, so lovely. Our predictions for the Turkish Grand Prix. I don't want to go through this, but let's do it anyway. Vettel out-qualifies Stroll. Of course, I go against the
Time.
running joke when Stroll does a good qualifying performance. Disgusting. So that's 0 points. And track is still slippery. I am going to take half a point for that because it
I was going to half a point.
rainy.
No.
Half a point I'll allow because
Mm.
it was slippery. So Don't
Track
you?
is still slippery.
You
though.
said in like IBR, this is the grippiest track of the year or whatever.
Yeah, in the dry, but I was predicting that it was going to be still slippery. And in the race, it was still slippery because people were still slippery.
Slippery.
And I'm taking half a point. I don't even care what you say. I am taking it now, but I think I do deserve half a point because there is a loophole
So
there.
I've got half a point actually
Oh,
because Mercedes sent someone new up on the podium, and I put
Okay,
new
so-
podium finisher this season.
no, come on. Let's not be
So-
silly now. Let's not be silly.
Yeah, so Alonso or Stroll didn't get on the podium.
Yeah, that was a very niche
Uh,
prediction.
Well, I just thought it's Turkey, it could be crazy. And
Yeah.
then another brilliant prediction of Hamilton and Verstappen on track controversy, and I don't think they were even on the same bit of racetrack.
I don't think they were in the same
all
sector.
weekend.
the whole yeah.
So brilliant.
0 points. Well done, Tommy. Katie.
I went for
Oh,
Perez podium. So that's 1 point, which is cool.
I love how
Uh,
that's supposed to be an out there prediction these days. Is Perez in a
that
Red
is
Bull?
pretty,
getting a
yeah,
podium.
it's
That is
so
mad.
true, isn't it?
Well, he hasn't done it since France, so
No,
No,
it's
no, we're
weird.
saying,
It's
we're saying
Oh,
that,
okay,
like,
yeah,
weird that
yeah.
it is. Like,
it's silly that it is an
It's
out there
even-
prediction that
yeah.
you're predicting a Red Bull on the podium, but yeah.
here we are.
Here we
And
are.
then both Alpines finished in the top 10, which didn't happen. So
did not happen.
sad noises.
unfortunately. Sad noises and noises.
No,
indeed.
noises.
Fans. Rainy Rain _ Vroom. Aston Martins clash together in race again. No. R Shepherd 1433. No points for Red Bull. No. Ishan _ 2002. No one will go flat out at turn 8. I mean,
They did in practice.
technically, yeah, but then technically in the race, are we gonna? I think we-
Doesn't say the race though. Yeah, be more
there's
specific.
no one to be fair. So yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Tommy's just ruining Ishan's day. Sorry, Ishan. 0 points. Predictions for the US
I
Grand
love our
Prix.
fans.
Predictions for the US Grand Prix. I have gone for crash at turn 1. Not gone for any specific laps for that. I was going to say lap 1, but I have not. I've kept it open. Red Bull and Mercedes miles clear of everyone else. So I've gone with that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it a crash at turn 1 at any point
Yeah, that's
in
what
the
I'm saying. I've left
weekend,
it
or
open.
the
Left it
whole?
open. It's open.
So it could be on like
Wow.
lap 38. There could be a crash at turn 1.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. And also, it could be a crash at turn 1 in 2024, which I cash in.
Oh,
in
cashing your
previous
chips.
times. But
In the Porsche Super Cup, there was
Yeah.
yes, good idea.
That's actually finished now.
I
but
will be watching.
W series are there, I think.
There you go. I'll be watching W Series for the second time. Red Bull and Mercedes miles clear of everyone else. That's kind of yeah.
Both
I mean,
cars.
I don't think in terms of because obviously we've had some midfield cars being
yeah.
there or
We'll
thereabouts.
judge.
Yeah,
how
I
well
will
Leclerc
be the
does.
one that judges what miles means. It might be 0.1 of a second, but anyway, there you go. There's my two. Tommy.
Mine is Bottas given team orders. It's James. And Leclerc top 5 race finish.
Oh, lovely.
Sorry, Matt.
Yeah.
Why are you saying
Drinks.
sorry? Top 5 is fine. Oh yeah, because you've jinxed them. Okay.
Yeah.
Katie,
I've gone for a mechanical failure for one of the championship contenders.
why would you
And-
predict that? What's wrong with you? Are you trying to ruin this championship?
Yeah.
Are you doing an anti-jinx? like Tommy?
Anti-jinx, hopefully.
Anti-jinx.
Okay, I'll allow that then.
And Ricardo finishes ahead of Norris. And I've also got to mention Alice in the Team WTF1 chat, who says that she thinks Daniel will wear some American get-up, which I think is a great prediction.
Facial hair.
'Cause he normally
Do you reckon
does-
He's going to get like the American.
Oh, I really hope he
Yeah.
doesn't get that, the facial hair back. That was
Yeah.
disastrous.
He does love Austin though, doesn't he? He
He's,
does
definitely,
love
he's
Austin.
definitely wearing like some
A cowboy hat or something.
Stetsons or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Some chaps.
And the fans. Ken Drink _ says Latifi outqualifies Russell. Chill.
Mm.
Bold.
F1 Aditya, McLaren double DNF, and Mega versus Primus Mick to score points. There you go. And also want to
Ooh.
say I wasn't being horrible at W Series. I'm sorry. It's just I don't really watch it. Anyway, there you go. I just thought that people would get angry that I was like the second time, but I don't know. Do you watch it, Tommy?
I've watched some of them. It's an awkward time actually because they do it after the Formula One qualifying. I think it is.
Yeah,
and
literally
obviously
straight
we're
after.
working.
Yeah, that's
So
probably
I
why
don't
I've
get
never
to,
seen it on
like-
television. Just
yeah.
yeah, interesting. And Katie, I assume do you watch a lot? Or?
Like Tommy says, sometimes it's difficult to watch them live because I'm like going mad with collie stories, but I try to watch where I can.
Yeah, solid. Better motorsport fan than I am. Okay, there you go. That's pretty much it. Also, probably want to mention about the Team WTF1 event, the karting event, the 22nd of October. Go check that out. It's on our website, WTF1.com. There should be a big banner, I imagine. Is there a big banner?
There is, yeah.
Yeah,
It'll be in the
sweet.
description as well.
Lovely stuff. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Katie. Tommy, what's your final thought? Led you into a full sense of security then. You thought I was outgoing and then boom, final thoughts.
I was trying to think of a good headline because you say I've been throwing some headlines.
Here we go. Go
But
on.
I can't think of one.
That's the headline. Good. Katie.
I can't think.
Katie.
I also can't think. I completely forgot about final thoughts.
Wow, Jesus. this
Have
is
you had a
great
nice
ending.
week?
That's
It's
probably
not
the
race
worst
week.
final thoughts we've ever had.
So far.
And my final thoughts is it's F1 esports race week. So catch me there.
Catch me outside.
How about that?
I might
There
watch
we
that
go.
for the second time.
Huh?
Savage from Tommy.
Okay. I'll take that. That's fair. That's a fair point. Cool. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Thank you to the Team WTF1 members watching along live as well. We'll see you for another podcast next week, as always. And that's pretty much it. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Katie. And thank you to everybody watching. Please give us 5 stars, a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, like the video. Take care. Bye.
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 Bye. Oh, double-handed wave. Bye.